In first world countries, ultra-processed food makes up to 60% of the average person's diet. It's crazy considering the side effects that we don't even know about, but even more so crazy because of the side effects that we do know about. That's why I'm here today asking what exactly is ultra-processed food and why should we stop consuming it? Because I figure we should at least know what we're putting into our bodies, right? In this video, I'm going to explore exactly what is ultra-processed food, why it's so damn addictive, the consequences of eating ultra-processed food on our health and on our environment, and what happens when we jump off ultra-processed food and begin to eat a primarily single ingredient whole food diet. Let's jump right into it. Ultra-processed food are essentially a group of foods that contain lab-grown ingredients, things that we wouldn't normally find in our kitchen. For example, salt, pepper, these are things that usually we would find in our kitchen. But for example, in your kitchen, you're not going to usually find xanthan gum, though you can buy it, and you're not usually going to find emulsifiers. Ultra-processed food then essentially becomes food with more than 5 ingredients. Now, sometimes one of the 5 can be an ultra-processed ingredient. Does that make it better? No. Sadly, it's still considered an ultra-processed food. Now, another way we can look at it is using the Nova Food Classification Table. Developed by Brazilian researcher Carlos Monteiro, the Nova food systems essentially go from level 1 to level 4, going from most natural to least. Level 1, you find yourself eating whole foods, single ingredients such as vegetables, fruits, and meats. Level 2 of the Nova group, you find processed ingredients, stuff like oil, black pepper, salt, that has undergone a very light amount of processing. Level 3, you'll find foods that have undergone a more strenuous level of food processing. Now this can look like smoked meats, it can look like packaged meats as well, and it can even look like canned foods, such as canned mushrooms, canned soup, and even canned corn. Though corn is a tricky one. Now all of these foods we consider processed. What does processed mean, you ask? Simple. Processed means that in order to obtain the food, it has to have gone under one type of processing. For example, fruits aren't ultra-processed or even processed because you eat them in the form that you get them. But salt, for example, might need to be extracted from water. Meat is a very low level of processing, and so it's considered level 1 because you do need to cook it in order to eat it. You see, cooking is the process by which we can eat meat, and therefore it undergoes like one process, not to be confused by the Nova Foods processing table. Now level 4 is where we find the ultra-processed foods group categorization. These are defined as foods with little or no actual food in them and are primarily a makeup or formulation of industrial ingredients. Essentially, when somebody says, oh, it's just full of chemicals, this is what you consider it to be. Yes, every food is technically a makeup of chemicals, but these ones are all vat grown. Different ultra-processed foods can, for example, look like emulsifiers. These are substances that essentially help bind ingredients that usually don't bind well together. For example, water and oil. Normally they don't mix, add an emulsifier, and they can mix. On your actual ingredients label, these foods can look something like carrageenan, I hope I'm saying that right, or soya or egg lecithins, and are primarily used in butters like margarine. Things that some people might consider butter, but actually has no real butter-like makeup. Next up, you have everybody's favorite stabilizers, xanthan gum, guar gum, and plenty of others along that list. These stabilizers are essentially used in order to preserve the texture or consistency of a food group. For example, mainly you'll see them in stuff like yogurts, puddings, ice cream, and protein shakes. And you also have flavor enhancers. Now they do what the name literally suggests that they do. They enhance flavor, aiming to make whatever you're eating more addictive and more palatable, more delicious essentially. MSG is one such ultra-processed ingredient, and a list of ultra-processed foods can be anything. It can literally be things that we consider healthy, such as protein bars, cereals sometimes. Ultra-processed ingredients are also used in a myriad of different breads, primarily white, but also brown breads as well. And you'll find them in essentially any already pre-made packaging. You'll find them in pre-made burger patties that might look like whole foods because all you could think about is the fact that they're just meats. But if you turn over the back and you look at the ingredients list, you'll find that they probably contain some kind of stabilizer. Ultimately, it's said, if your great-grandparents wouldn't recognize the ingredients and wouldn't find those ingredients in their pantries, you're dealing with ultra-processed foods. So we know that ultra-processed ingredients are lab-grown, but then why are they so addictive? How have we engineered them to make them so hyper-palatable? This is a key word that I want you to remember. Ultra-processed food is hyper-palatable. This means the correct amount of salt, sugar, flavor enhancers, stabilizers, fats, and emulsifiers are put into a food in order to make it, again the keyword, hyper-palatable, essentially meaning that it overwhelms our taste buds. And because of this great overwhelming of our taste buds, it drives an even greater level of dopamine than normal food would, thereby overwhelming our reward centers in our hypothalamus and messing with natural food regulation that our body deals with on a day-to-day basis. Because of this, regular food becomes less palatable, and so we crave even more hyper-palatable food that is ultra-processed. Now, essentially, they not only work on our dopamine system, they actually work on our craving and food regulation systems as well. Why? Because ultra-processed foods are quite literally made to be low satiety foods. For example, they're low in fiber and protein, which keeps us satisfied for far longer, and is one of the reasons why if you eat a primarily meat-filled diet, you tend not to overeat because it just stays in your gut longer. If you eat vegetables, if you eat fruits, you get fiber along with that, and so you tend to be satisfied for longer amounts of time. So not only is it low in protein and fiber, it's also high in refined carbs and fats, which are very easy for the body to digest. And they lack bulk, they actually lack consistency. They aren't properly able to stretch your stomach out, and so even though you might be 1,000 calories over your base metabolic rate, chances are on a primarily ultra-processed food diet, you're feeling less satisfied and less full than if you eat a whole foods diet, even if you're aiming for 500 calories less than your basal metabolic rate. As a matter of fact, ultra-processed foods are quite literally made to spike your insulin blood sugar levels. By doing this, they essentially mess with your mood, increase irritability, and make you crave more and more of the same food that you've just been getting, throwing you even further down that rabbit hole. One quite simple example are the Pringles chips. They're literally made to sit on your tongue and dissolve. Everything about ultra-processed foods are quite literally designed to make them easy to consume and high in flavor. The easier they are to consume, the less work your jaw actually has to do, meaning that you can eat more. Try and eat a steak like you do an Oreo biscuit. You quite literally can't. You have to chew and chew and chew, otherwise you know that you're just gonna choke. Oreos, they can go down in one. This, by the way, also happens to be one of the reasons why a lot of people nowadays don't develop strong jaws. They don't develop jaws that can support the size of their teeth, and so their teeth tend to be messed up. So how do ultra-processed foods affect our bodies? Well, first, one of the most pressing matters is that ultra-processed foods usually need to be fortified by some kind of vitamin or nutrient profile. This is because ultra-processed foods are by nature bleached, they're broken down and then they're brought back up. Take seed oils, for example. The reason they can be unsaturated is because they are literally broken down into their base components, turned into neutral flavorings, and then brought back up as unsaturated fats. Like this, they can be used across the board in all different kinds of foods. For example, olive oil in Nutella wouldn't work. Olive oil has a bitter textural profile, but you put palm oil in there, or vegetable oil, or sunflower oil, and it's all quite literally the same. There is no flavor profile, and so it can be used for everything across the board. Not only that, it also happens to be a lot cheaper with their farming method. First, because ultra-processed food is lacking in so many nutrients and vitamins, but still so high in carbs and fats, your body gets confused. It begins to mess up its own regulation. Our bodies essentially crave when we're not getting the correct nutrients. And so when we're eating ultra-processed foods, not only are we getting all of the dopamine rewards and ease of access that ultra-processed foods offer, but we're also not getting any nutrients to satisfy what our bodies need. Now, historically, to our bodies, this doesn't make any sense. In the past, when we had eaten calorie-dense foods, they usually came with an abundance of nutrients and vitamins and minerals. And so once we had eaten them, our bodies knew to lay off, because being fat helps absolutely no one. But now with ultra-processed foods, our body gets the signal that it's getting a lot of calories, but it also doesn't get the signal that it's getting a lot of nutrients. And so now it's confused. It figures, I should just eat more. So now once again, not only is your dopamine in overdrive and real food has become far less palatable, and now you're not even getting any nutrients, and so you're craving even more and even more. This is how ultra-processed food affects the body. And there were even some studies done with stuff like sweeteners, especially when paired with carbohydrates, that suggest that much like sugar, they feed the bad bacteria in our gut microbiomes. This causes a wide array of issues which I'm about to go in, but just to close this segment off, emulsifiers and gums also tend to destroy our gut lining. All of that bad bacteria from our gut then spills out into our bloodstream and can cause a lot of health issues. Here are some. Since ultra-processed food essentially disrupts our gut microbiomes, it can cause a crap ton of issues, leaky gut being one of them. A lot of the effects of ultra-processed food then lead to stuff like autoimmune disorders. Like I already mentioned, because of how soft they are, they cause our face shapes to get smaller, our chins to be weaker, and our teeth to have no place to grow. Our bones can become brittle and our immune systems literally get punished into the ground. Ultra-processed food, like I mentioned before, has even been linked to autoimmune issues like eczema or other even worse problems that can come down the line like Alzheimer's and dementia, even cancer. I think it's safe to say that ultra-processed food isn't just bad for you, it's horrible. It's terrible. It's like the boogeyman. And then we move even further on from that point. Hormonal imbalances become a key issue when eating ultra-processed food. Insulin can get disrupted, and type 2 diabetes can be just down the road because of an overconsumption of ultra-processed food. Leptin, the satiety hormone, is reduced greatly, again because of the nutritional deficiencies and because of all of the gut microbiome issues and the dopamine release acting on your body. Ghrelin, the hunger hormone, comes in abundance and is pushing its way to the surface. Why? Because you're not getting the correct nutrition. So it knows it needs to eat more in order to fuel itself more. The literal fuel you're putting into your body is less efficient when you eat ultra-processed foods. It has less substance to it, and so you need more of it in order to get the correct vitamins and the correct minerals. One of the reasons why in today's day and age we've started using pills and stopped eating real foods. And worst of all, cortisol gets flushed into the system, which can disrupt sleep, and that disrupts the basic repair function of the body. And the fact that it messes up your hormones so much usually tends to result in stuff like weight gaining because you can't control the amount of food that's going into your body, mood swings, which can have a real tangible effect on our lives, such as ruining our relationships, and even worse, it can actually disrupt reproductive organs in our body, making it harder to do what humans are meant to do and have little babies. In this study done in 2019, there were two different groups of people. One that ate primarily a diet of ultra-processed foods and one that didn't. The people that only ate ultra-processed foods resulted in eating an excess of 500 calories every single day. Obviously, this is a leading cause in then diabetes, all of the issues I've already mentioned, and gaining fat. Now, this study made sure to control things like salt, sugar, and basic tastes, and people were allowed to eat as much as they wanted to. This is the issue that comes along with ultra-processed food. Now, if you think those are the only issues with ultra-processed foods, I'm here to tell you, you are 100% wrong. Plenty of environmental disasters come along with overeating them. Ultra-processed food relies on monocrop farming, meaning only one crop is built up in one plot of land. Now, in order to produce ultra-processed food, even though it is cheaper, large fields are needed so that they can actually secure the supply for the demand. Think about it. You're craving it more, and so you're buying it more. Because you're buying it more, companies need to supply more. When companies need to supply more, not only are they getting more money, they also need more land in order to produce more food. Exactly. So when that happens, these monocrop farms destroy habitats, they destroy ecosystems, they kill off different animals, critters, and the like, displacing all manner of creatures like birds, and disrupting biodiversity in biomes by destroying different microbes and beneficial insects that help fertilize land and soil. More than this, they can kill pollinators such as bees that are absolutely necessary for food production, and not only depletes the nutrition of the soil, but also increases the pest vulnerability, which means that more pesticides need to be used. An example of this is palm oil that is primarily farmed in Southeast Asia and destroys large amounts of jungle, displacing even bigger animals such as tigers, rhinos, and orangutans. And if you thought this was the end of it, then let me tell you again, you're wrong. Because not only does it do all of this damage to our environment, it's also usually packaged in single-use plastics, meaning even more waste. Exactly. Now, as we come to the end, we've already established exactly why ultra-processed food is so damn bad for us. Essentially, it's bad for us because it has no nutrients, is way too easy to consume, and overdrives our dopamine systems, which then result in a lot of bad effects like depression, anxiety, even bipolar disorder, eczema, Alzheimer's, dementia, cancer, and who knows what else. Ultra-processed food hasn't really been in circulation for long enough and hasn't been given the fair and honest trials that are needed in order to see exactly what's going on. Well, I challenge you to go out there and find some kind of study that exonerates ultra-processed food from all of these negative impacts, that doesn't have a member or multiple members of the research team that are funded and have some type of conflict of interest with food companies like Nestle, like Kellogg's, that produce these ultra-processed ingredients. What you'll find is that a lot of these studies that are given funding are usually given funding by large food companies. These food companies are usually the ones producing ultra-processed foods, which come cheaper and come with a higher demand than whole foods. And so naturally, there's a conflict of interest between the scientists and these corporations funding the science, because the corporations want one thing and the scientists that are being funded by them also want one thing. They want money. But let's move on to the next part. What exactly happens when you stop eating ultra-processed foods? When you stop eating ultra-processed foods, the effects are very similar to what would have happened a couple of decades ago if you had stopped eating sugar. Your mood swings would probably stabilize because all of your hormones are stabilizing. You'd probably lose fat because you're eating more protein, you're sated from food most of the time, and you're getting the correct nutrition that you need. Your immune system is probably going to get stronger, ultimately also resulting in more energy and more motivation. And now that in itself has a trickle-down effect. With more motivation, you can build discipline. With discipline, you can build systems, and with systems, you can actually work to achieving whatever dreams or goals you might have. Along with that, losing the fat makes it a lot easier for you to climb stairs. Chances are your quality of life will go up drastically. Your gut issues will resolve themselves. And for me personally, I had acne that didn't go away for years and years. Quite literally 8 to 9 years, this acne stayed on the back of my neck. And now, because I eat far less ultra-processed food than I did back in the day, the acne has all but healed itself. When you eat real food, when your body is truly nutritioned up, then that's when it works at 100%. We aren't as weak as we think we are. Trust me, the human body knows exactly what it is doing. Through and through, it knows when it gets high levels of nutrition, it doesn't become fat, it becomes stronger, and it works so much better. The inflammation that you might feel on a daily basis should not be chronic. It should be because you might have suffered some sort of injury, but ultimately it is not a normal thing for you to live with. Even as you get older, inflammation should not be normalized. Now, if you believe that I'm calling for an absolute quit of all ultra-processed foods, then you're also wrong. No offense, but frankly, I don't think that's exactly what will make things better. Ultra-processed food does have its place, but only when people know what they're actually putting into their bodies. I am a proponent of the 90-10 rule, 80-20 rule. 80%, 90% of our diets should be whole foods, single ingredient foods that our body recognizes. Historically speaking, biologically speaking, our body recognizes this food and knows how to properly break down its components and turn them into nutritional value. Foods that are complex, that help our children grow to their maximum potential and help us stave off all of the negative effects that aging might come with. This is what 80 to 90% of our diet should essentially be. Now, if you have a cookie here or there, or if you have some kind of fast food, be it Wendy's, McDonald's, KFC, will that kill you? Will that cause all of these issues that I've listed? No. Why? Because you're simply not eating enough of them. Even if you have one drink every weekend, it's not going to kill you. Hell, if anything, it'll probably help you control your cravings, control your satiety, and control your mental focus far better. The sad reality is ultra-processed foods are here and they're here to stay. The best we've got and the best we can do is to control ourselves and control our environments, control the food that enters our body, and know exactly what we're putting into our body. That being said, if you're the kind of person that wants to quit ultra-processed food 100%, then I'm all for it. I think that is exactly what essentially all of us should do. But having a cookie here or there, like I mentioned, won't be the end of you. It won't be the reason why you get Alzheimer's or dementia. But when you make that 60% of your diet being ultra-processed foods, then that is exactly what will happen. Down the line, you'll gain weight. Down the line, you might get diabetes. You might get neurological problems, your mood will sour, you won't achieve the dreams and goals that you're striving towards because you simply don't have the energy to put into that. And this is the primary reason why I believe ultra-processed foods are literally killing us. On the other hand, eating a whole food diet basically means in today's day and age, you have superpowers. Not because you're any special kind of human, but because everybody else is just so damn unhealthy. Those are the effects of ultra-processed foods and why we should stop eating them. I truly believe in what I have to say, but if you have a study or some kind of finding that isn't funded by big food, then please leave it in the comments down below. Like and subscribe and hit that notification bell for the next video that I put out, which, spoiler alert, earlier this year, I quit ultra-processed food for 30 days. After quitting sugar for 30 days, which is a video that you can find right up here, and found that my body reacted in a completely different way than I was expecting. Needless to say, eat healthy to stay healthy. I'll see you next time.